All right. I'm here for the Seattle Residency Project. Please stay home. Virtual online exhibit artist talk. I see there's a few folks on here already. Just do me a favor and say hi on the chat, just to make sure that y'all can hear me just fine. Maybe I'll play some music. With that said, I'm going to get started here. Well, welcome to my artist talk. Again, my name is Toka Valu. I am one of the 6 resident artists of the Seattle Residency Project. We just released our online virtual exhibit last Saturday at noon called Please Stay Home. My piece particularly is titled Vāha'api. So today I'll just go over a little bit of how I kind of made Vāha'api, which is this piece right here next to me, what inspired it, a couple of the things that I was thinking about, and then maybe some Q&A. And this is my first time doing this, so this is a brand new thing for me to do as far as talking about my art or to talk about what inspired the piece that I made. So, with that, like I said, Toka Valu, I actually grew up in the Kingdom of Tonga. It's been so long that I might as well be more American than Tonga. But I came out here in 1997 when I was about 14, 15 years old. My late mother. That'll be tough. She'll be gone about 3 years. Tomorrow being Mother's Day, that'll be another reflective day for me. But, so we came out here in '97, and ever since I could remember, I have been either drawing or making some kind of art. That was a particular thing that was pretty, I'd say it was affirmed a lot as I was growing up, although I didn't really think it would become anything that I wanted to pursue. Not until my mom's constant asking and questions about exactly what it is I was going to do with my art that I actually started to think about what that might mean as a career, particularly as she was nearing the end of her life. She was battling cancer. So as far as my art's concerned, for the past 10, 15 years, I had been working in higher education at the University of Washington. And in that time, I did a lot of community organizing, community engagement. And alongside that, what I used to help me do that was my art. And whether it was to help celebrate student graduates from the University of Washington or to help support some organizations who were requesting works of art. I did a lot of that with that was how I was utilizing my skill within the arts to kind of help do my work as a community organizer and engagement. This past September, in 2019, I actually left my full-time job at the University of Washington. That was 10 years of working at UW. And I actually really loved my time at UW. I don't think I would have grown as professionally as I did had I not done that. But it did get to a point where my advancement in that particular career path didn't seem or didn't feel like the right fit anymore. And again, going back to my mom being one who would constantly question me about it. After many conversations with my own partner, she was okay with me kind of making sure that I had all my finances in order, especially in order to do something like this. Thinking was, if I'm going to give it at least a shot, and if it works out as far as just being able to pay some of the bills, if I could at least cover the house rent monthly with this particular career choice or career change, I think we'd be okay. So I did that, and it's been quite an amazing journey so far. Back in February, when I actually did apply for the Seattle Residency Project back in November, I think it was, and I got this particular residency, which is the first time I've ever done anything like this. And I'm very, in the short time I've been part of this residency project, I think I have grown leaps and bounds as far as my understanding of how to think and look at art, as far as what it means to this. So I want to talk about Vāha'api here real quickly. And so when we as a residency started talking about our first show pre-COVID-19, we were going to do the show live back in March. And so, of course, we've been planning about a week before the event itself. COVID-19 was really starting to was already kind of in full-fledged pandemic, and so we made the decision, the tough choice, of course, necessary choice, to put off everything that had to do with in-person gallery. And so, for about a month after that, we started really thinking about what it would mean to do it in the virtual. So, Please Stay Home came about, which is very much tied to the current circumstances that we're in. And it's a great, I think, not that there's anything great about it, but there is some silver linings. I think it's especially how we think about the way that art either heals and brings communities together. And so 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 we each had to kind of think through exactly what the current circumstances might have provided for each of us in our own practice. And so some of the artists did some amazing stuff, and I think I'm still very much interested in hearing what they have to say about their own pieces. But I, of course, went in through my interpretation of the circumstances as it is, and being Tongan, I'm being 14 and 15 when I came here. I was very lucky to have a very grounded understanding of it, very basics of what Tongan culture is very much about, particularly with language. Without language, Tongan culture can be very hard to kind of grasp. And I'm very, very happy and glad and thankful for a lot of my uncles, aunties, my mom, for having made sure that I had a firm grasp of the Tongan language. I don't have a complete understanding of it, just because there's other forms of Tongan speech that I'm not quite haven't quite mastered, but I have enough to be able to understand a lot of the Tongan concepts as. So in that sense, Vāha'api is actually the word Vāha'api is actually a contraction of three specific Tongan words that kind of wrap up my feelings about the current circumstance. So Va is very much about interrelational space between people. More commonly, it's the interrelational faith between people. Um, in my interpretation of Va, especially, I think it's very much a relational faith between people and other things. So all living things, whether it's trees, plants, this planet. And I think that's very much part of what I was thinking as far as the current circumstances and Va. There's something off kilter when it comes to our relationship between us and this planet. Ha'a is the second word. So Ha'a for Tongans is uh, means your clan affiliation, and by that there's your immediate family in home. There's your extended family, which includes your grandparents and your extended family, and then the extended family beyond that, which includes great grandparents and their own families. So that's kind of their affiliation, which is not what we call Ha'a. And is just how I kind of interpreted family. When you think of home and family, these are the things that you're most worried about when it comes to uh, this frightening as far as the pandemic is concerned. And last, of course, is Api. Api is literally home. For me, Api and in Tongan culture is where a lot of our lessons about the world begin. And so Vaha and Api, I just contracted those into one word, Vā'api, as what I was thinking. And I think in general, what a lot of Tongans are thinking about pre-COVID-19, as far as the way they move throughout their days, as they go to work. It's always about maintaining the relationship they have with their families, about their family, and it's about their home. Right? So I was thinking particularly about those particular things. And Tongan culture, Va is very much about maintaining a particular type of harmony in order for work to get done. And so, given the pandemic, my interpretation of that is that something is off kilter, um, very much off kilter. I think our world is trying to remind us about its relationship with us, that it will heal with or without us. And so, as I was thinking through that, a lot of what my previous or my practice is all about is the signs and the motifs from Pacifica or from Oceania. One of those particular designs is what is my favorite is Amo Mokofe, which is also in my piece Vā'api. And very much it's very geometric. And when I was playing around with as I was trying to play around with some pieces to kind of see how I can make that into something that's a little more tangible, because Ba can be a very conceptual idea, but I was trying what would it look like as a tangible piece, and my initial interpretation was to try and make something like that. And this is me just testing things out with paper. And as I looked at that, I'm like, oh my gosh, this looks like I'm on Kofe. And I think that's the direction I'm going to go. And there was no real planning. I was just kind of trying to make things happen. And as it did, my heart felt pulled in that particular direction. So I went with that. And out of that came this particular piece here. So this is made by just a lot of cutting. And the particular piece here in the middle that you see, that's just a little different from the rest of them. The idea is that there's harmony in its perfect geometrical shape, but that you do notice the difference within the single piece that's in there. And that's kind of to represent the times that we're in right now. On the same token, though, this piece is I did use tapa a lot to do a lot of different things here, and it is also in that piece that's a little different from the others. I did decorate it with a lot of different designs from Pacifica itself, and so the idea is that although it is different and it might also represent current circumstances, this is also could be my own. This is, I should say, should be more complicated than that. So this is also my own critique of Tongan culture in general. It could be very stifling, very unforgiving as it comes to change. As our communities continue to move out of the country, what does it mean to be Tongan abroad when you're no longer tied to the land. Of course, several of us have the opportunity to go back and forth between here and Tonga, and that's certainly a level of privilege that some have, but not everyone has. What does it mean to practice being Tongan outside of the land that you're in? So, because the piece itself is beautiful in an aesthetic sense, um, the idea is that I'm pushing for some acceptance of the difference in our own rather rigid at times Tongan culture. And so there's double meanings that I have in there, which is very much a Tongan thing as well. I think in English it might be called coded language, and maybe within the Seattle Residency Project for giving me the language for that. But in Tongan, it's very much heriaki. Heriaki is very much about double meaning. You're saying one thing, but you might also be with a different part of the message. So with that, this is Vāha'api. I might have gone through that kind of fast, but if you have questions, certainly type them over here in the chat. As far as my future with my practice, I think what I'm really excited about is to continue to be part of this particular Seattle Residency Project, to connect further with all the artists, and especially to dive deeper into this particular concept around Va that I used to create this particular piece here. What as far as what it would look like, I'm actually not sure. But I do feel strongly about the concepts that I was exploring with Vāha'api, and because it's very much from a place of who I am as a Tongan, and not just as a Tongan, but as a Tongan here in the United States. Because you put 1,000 Tongans in one room, and you basically have so my particular understanding of what our culture and what our cultures is about, I hope could resonate with some younger people who are also of Tongan descent, and might lack the language to kind of understand exactly what their circumstances are as far as being Tongan and being here in the United States. So with that, I don't know if anyone has questions, but just going to keep an eye on the chat here. If anyone has questions, please let me know. Otherwise, I'll just keep talking about this tapa here I got from an auntie. I guess I should say that my choice of using the tapa is also very intentional as well. The fact that it is also undecorated is also intentional. This tapa is, in this stage, it's called petaki. Petaki is what the tapa is before it becomes glued together in a series of pieces that becomes the ngatu that you see back there. That's a small piece of a larger ngatu. Ngatu is what it's called when it is completed and completely decorated and designed and things like that. So this petaki right here, because I feel that it also represents my own current standing, where I feel my practice is. It's got structure. It's got some aesthetic beauty to it, of course, but it is still a bit unfinished. And that's where I feel that my particular practice is at. And it's been amazing being on this particular project, residency project, because I haven't been able to get to know as many artists, or at least at the very least, just following them on Instagram and just kind of seeing what folks are creating, especially out throughout Moana. Artists in Australia, specifically Pacifica artists, in Australia and New Zealand, through the organization outside. I have opened my eyes to a whole new world that I'm like, oh wow, I'm not the only one thinking of these things beyond the borders of our own island nations. So it's really affirming and empowering to see all the different works that Pacific Islander artists are creating. And that's something I want to help establish here in the Northwest. I myself know that there's a lot of talent here in the Northwest, particularly within the world of visual arts and arts itself. I know some of them personally, but I'm sure that there are others that I don't know personally. So I think it'd be awesome to kind of create some kind of platform that really spotlight and uplift a lot of the artists who are here in the Northwest. Um, let's see, Vāha'api. Part of what I also want to do is keep working with this stuff. Again, within the concepts that I've explored with Vāha'api here, that's something I really want to explore, especially to work with Vāha'api here. At some point, I'd like to get to a point where I make this myself. The only trouble is being able to get this stuff in my head of this stuff because it's not worthless. So that would take considerable resources as far as from Hawaii potentially for making this stuff myself. At some point, I'd like to make it myself. Additionally, there are other ways that I'm hoping to engage some of the Tongan communities that I mentioned earlier that these pieces are glued together by a group of different women. And I say women because that's who upholds this particular practice in Tonga, a kokaanga, which happens usually on the weekends, where a group of maybe 7 or 8 or 10 households of women can come together with their own pieces of hitake, and they'll all glue it together, and they'll begin the process of making this thing, which creates a final piece like that back there. It's part of how they share wealth. Once the piece is completed, one woman on that household will take that piece. They'll begin the whole process again, and so forth. And so I'm sure that's a common way of building wealth throughout the world, but that's what is essentially what that is. And so these pieces, once it's completed, Ratu back there is part of what Tauhiva, which is the concept I was talking about. Tauhiva is the act of nurturing and caring for the relational space that lives between everyone. Tauhiva is essentially nurtured and taken care of, whether it's for birthdays, funerals, any type of celebration or celebration of life or honoring of death. It all happens with ngatu and other crafts that are made with hand by women, sometimes by the men especially, and then also there's also a lot of other protocols. So that's all things that I'm also trying to explore. Given the COVID-19, also as far as other ways that I feel like I can express my practice, there is a lot of content on the Facebook Twitterverse universe of other Tongans who are making live content for a number of followers, and the content as in a lot of opinion about why and how things are happening. And I say that because it's interesting to see where folks are and where folks are agreeing with, specifically those who are Tongan. And there's potentially stuff that I'd like to explore there as far as having a conversation. I'll leave it at that. Doesn't seem to be any questions, but I'll give it a couple minutes, play some music, and if in that time there's no questions, I'm going to go ahead and log off. So if you have questions, those of you who are on the live stream here, go ahead and punch it in on the chat. Otherwise, enjoy some music from Kimie. Okay, so it sounds like some of the questions aren't showing up on the chat for some reason. So Um, One question I got over text is, how are the squares attached? Well, they're not actually attached, so I'll just show you. But basically, I put little spacers in between them right at the bottom there. So because that makes them rather fragile, and I think that's also partly what I enjoy about this particular piece, because Va, the interrelational space between people, is a very fragile space. So I knew I could have just attached them and just glued the heck out of them, and so that it doesn't fall apart. But that's not really the reality of relationships. You have to put care and work into making them work. Right? So I made sure to just kind of have space in between them. Even the spaces in between the one that's rather different from the rest of them is different from all of them. So there's a little more space in between this guy and the rest of them, again, to kind of highlight just how different it is from the rest. Although even within this particular piece, there's still a bit of harmony as far as the way they're all lined up. And I can think of several communities within our own Tongan worldwide community that might apply to, given what we have overall as well. So there's a question that's also not showing up in here, but have I ever thought of using local bark to make Vāha'api? Actually, my partner actually brought that up, and I think I do want to try and work, explore that, especially with cedar bark. I wonder if cedar bark would have some of the same qualities that hiapo, which is the tree that we use in Tonga. All of the Pacifica have different names. Hiapo is a rather skinny tree, and I think cedar bark at least have similar type of properties. I just haven't gotten there yet, so I'll definitely make sure to explore that. Thank you, Juma, for that question. Okay, so I'm just going over another question that was brought in here with Connor. I talked a little bit about the tapa as part of the sculpture and how it's totally decorated, but as the end product, it's not totally shown. I think part of what I was thinking through there is that there is work to explore with as part of exploring and working on the that you have with people. There's always inherent beauty, in my opinion. There's always inherent beauty in the relationship and within the people that you come in contact with. And I think that's also part of what I'm doing with this piece here. I totally did show how I made that piece on the video on Vāha'api online, but like I said, at the end there, I ended up not showing it totally. That is at the very top. So again, it's part of not granting access to that particular piece as a statement, but also just the inherent beauty that I believe all beings have, if you care to put in the work. And again, Tauki Va, and care for interrelations, very work heavy and very time consuming, but also very rewarding, because when things are needed, the Va that you have developed with that particular person or with you move through. That's Tongan community, and I think a lot of oceanic communities in general. It's very community oriented, and so is very much important to care for in the event things, catastrophic things happen, like hurricanes or this pandemic. So thank you for that. Okay, it seems like the chat isn't working. So if you have my number, I'm sorry if you don't have my number. But if you have my number, just shoot me a question. I'll definitely just go over those. come down here to the end of our time. Um, but I appreciate you, Cassie, for that, the unseen aspect of it. Um, I did think through that a lot. I was very nervous about this piece overall. Making this is something that I've never really done in my own practice. I'm usually an illustrator. So what I would have done uh, if if I hadn't been part of this particular residency, I don't think I would have made a piece like that. I would have made something more similar to what's back there, uh, more illustration heavy, um, and and I really appreciate the residency for helping me expand and kind of really think beyond what. Um, the most surprising thing I learned. Thank you, Chingy and Cassie, for that question. Um, I think what I felt in making this particular piece as I was kind of testing, and like I said, when I was testing with this little thing here, is that I felt a particular I felt a particular sense of creativity that I had never felt like I touched before, and so that was really exciting. Even if it's something like this, and so that was, I think, the most surprising thing to me. With illustration, it's something that I'm very familiar with. I've done that for all that as long as I can remember, and so there's a certain sense of wonder in the creativity of that kind of, I think, I kind of lost, or at least not really always there for me. But when I started trying to create this, um, even though I didn't know I was going to create that, I actually felt, I can't really explain it, but there's maybe it's a type of mafana that Tongans refer to with kind of enthusiasm, that it literally kept me up for nights all the way, working up to the deadline that we had as a residency to make our pieces happen and polished. So that was really, I think, the most surprising thing for me. It's this sense of mafana that Tongans really have, whether it's to fulfill familial duty to each other as Tongans, but that was a feeling that I felt very strongly in making this. I was really excited about that. That something so indigenously close to home would be present as I was making art. That wasn't necessarily within the realm of what I created. Would I consider making more sculptor 3D work? Definitely. I would love to. I am aware of. I think I'm conscious of the fact that it's not necessarily the medium I usually work in, but as one of the artists within the Seattle Residency Project said, um, if a concept that you're working with doesn't necessarily, if can't live within a single medium that you're used to using, try and use others. So that was kind of also what I was thinking about. Is using the video, the music choice. Leola is a very the song and the video on Vāha'api is a very intentional choice as well. It's very much a lamenting song. My love, where are you? It's kind of the feeling that the song I think feel fitting for. So the song itself, the video, trying to kind of stretch myself here and there, but very cautiously. I feel like making something that I feel I can be proud and happy of, but definitely would love to explore really a lot more as I continue to work on stuff. Who is my current Fetaki supplier? Is my auntie. I literally called my stepbrother, my grandmother, my auntie, and luckily they have their own women's group, and they still do a lot of stuff, whether it's sourcing ngatus directly from the kingdom or other things. But luckily they had supplies of that stuff. So I was like, "Can I buy some of that from y'all?" And they actually just gave it to me. So I'm really grateful that, that they gave it to me, and I'll make sure that they know that I can. So far, my supplier is auntie and grandma. hoping to maybe make a connection to support support a business in Tonga. All right. So we're about 6 minutes over. With that said, I think there are no other questions. Or if there are more questions, certainly feel free to hit me up. You can get my email, or my full email is va'aeomatoka@gmail. So that's just V as in Victor, AEOMATOKA @gmail. Shoot me a question there, or just on my Instagram at Toka Valu. So with that, thank you so much for joining me and my art talk. This has been quite an experience for me also. Just I need to get more comfortable with it, but I really appreciate you all for your questions, your encouragement, and your support. It really does mean a lot this time. So with that said, wishing you all abundant health, wellness, um, and immense grace as we continue to move forward through these difficult times, and as we try to reopen in a rather safe way. Ofat, Boa.